Hello, students. Welcome back again. So, we will continue with the chapter Nelson Mandela Long Walk to Freedom. So, come on page number 21, last paragraph. In life, every man has twin obligations. Twin means two, and obligation means a duty to his family, to his parents, to his wife, and children. And he has an obligation to his people, his community, his country. In a civil here means courteous and polite. In a civil and humane society, each man is able to fulfill those obligations according to his own inclinations and abilities. So, here inclination means natural tendency of behavior. But in a country like South Africa, it was almost impossible for a man of my birth and color to fulfill both of those obligations. In South Africa, a man of color who attempted to live as a human being was punished and isolated. In South Africa, a man who tried to fulfill his duty to his people was inevitably ripped from his family, means separated from the family. Inevitably means unavoidably. They were not able to avoid, they were separated from their family and his home and was forced to live a life apart, a twilight existence of secrecy and rebellion. So, here twilight means half light, and secrecy is the action of keeping something secret, and rebellion is the action or process of resisting authority or control. I did not in the beginning choose to place my people above my family, but in attempting to serve my people, I found that I was prevented from fulfilling my obligations as a son, a brother, a father, and a husband. So, what we have understood from this paragraph is, according to the author, every human being has its responsibility towards the family as well as the society. Generally, under normal circumstances, a person can maintain the balance between the two. But in countries like South Africa, it was never so easy. When a person of color would come up for his society, like black colored people, he would be arrested and taken away from his family, thus keeping them from fulfilling both responsibilities. Which were the two obligations or two responsibilities they had? Responsibility towards the family as well as the society. In the beginning, Mandela did not put his people over his family, but it was only later when he realized that in order to be there for his people, he was compromising his duties towards his own family. I was not born with a hunger to be free. I was born free, free in every way that I could know. Free to run in the fields near my mother's hut, free to swim in the clear stream that ran through my village, free to roast mealies under the stars and ride the broad backs of slow moving bulls. Here, stream means a small narrow river, and mealies is a maize plant. As long as I obeyed my father and abided means obeyed. He obeyed his father and abided by the customs of my tribe. I was not troubled by the laws of man or God. It was only when I began to learn that my boyhood freedom was an illusion. Boyhood means the state or time of being a boy, and illusion is a false idea or belief. freedom had already been taken. When I discovered as a young man that my freedom had already been taken from me, that I began to hunger for it. At first, as a student, I wanted freedom only for myself. The transitory freedoms of being able to stay out at night. Transitory means not permanent. Read what I pleased and go where I chose. Later, as a young man in Johannesburg, I yearned for the basic and honorable freedoms of achieving my potential, of earning my keep, of marrying and having a family. The freedom not to be obstructed in a lawful life. So, here yearned means have an intense feeling or longing for something. The author did not have the plan to stand against the apartheid system early in life. He lived his childhood like any normal child in South Africa. He only had to follow the rules set up by his father or the customs of his tribe. As soon as he grew up and began to learn the facts as to how people of color are treated, he decided to stand against it. He had this urge for freedom from inside, earlier just for himself, staying out at night, etc., and later for having a basic life, not just for himself but for everyone. In Johannesburg, they had to struggle for having a peaceful marriage, family, and basic amenities which everyone has access to, where law and order exists. But then I slowly saw that not only was I not free, but my brothers and sisters were not free. I saw that it was not just my freedom that was curtailed. Curtailed means reduced, but the freedom of everyone who looked like I did. That is when I joined the African National Congress, and that is when the hunger for my own freedom became the greater hunger for the freedom of my people. It was this desire for the freedom of my people to live their lives with dignity and self respect that animated my life, that transformed a frightened young man into a bold one. Frightened means afraid, who is afraid of something. That drove a law abiding attorney to become a criminal, that turned a family loving husband into a man without a home, that forced a life loving man to live like a monk. Monk is the one, a member of religious community of men typically living under poverty and obedience. I am no more virtuous or self sacrificing than the next man, but I found that I could not even enjoy the poor and limited freedoms I was allowed when I knew my people were not free. Freedom is indivisible. Indivisible here means unable to be divided or separated. The chains on any one of my people were the chains on all of them. The chains on all of my people were the chains on me. So Nelson Mandela joined the African National Congress, that is ANC, when he realized it is not only him whose basic rights were snatched or taken away, but of all those who looked like him. He had this fire inside him to free his people from the injustice. It was this fire that changed the author completely as a man. From being scared to brave, a lawyer to the one breaking the law, a family man to a man without a home, and a lively man into being a monk. It was the knowledge that he and his people have restricted freedom that made him into a selfless man, as opposed to before. According to him, freedom cannot be divided. Snatching it away from some was equivalent to taking it away from everyone, and that meant taking it away from the author. So come over to next paragraph now. I knew that the oppressor must be liberated just as surely as the oppressed. A man who takes away another man's freedom is a prisoner of hatred. He is locked behind the bars of prejudice. Prejudice means a strong dislike without any good reason. And narrow mindedness. I am not truly free if I am taking away someone else's freedom, just as surely as I am not free when my freedom is taken from me. The oppressed and oppressor alike are robbed of their humanity. So here Nelson Mandela mentions that the need to free the oppressor is as high as that of the oppressed, because the oppressor is bounded by the shackles of hatred. He has the weight of all the people who he has tormented, for he carries the curses of all of their families for taking away someone else's freedom and making them a prisoner. He becomes a prisoner of biasness. Thus he is robbed of his humanity and need to be freed. So come over to next page, students, that is page number 24. We have oral comprehension check questions here. What twin obligations does Mandela mention? So according to Mandela, every person has twin obligations, one towards his family and the other towards his society. Our next question is, what did being free mean to Mandela as a boy and as a student? How does he contrast these transitory freedoms with the basic and honorable freedoms? So as we know, as a young boy and student, Mandela's idea of freedom was to be able to stay out at night, read whatever he desired, and go wherever he chose. On growing up as a man, he realized that these were transitory freedoms. Transitory means that these were not permanent freedoms he was looking for, because their basic and honorable freedoms had been taken away. There was no liberty to have a peaceful marriage, family, and life. Dark-skinned people were deprived of their fundamental human rights. For them, freedom was an illusion. Does Mandela think the oppressor is free? Why or why not? So according to Mandela, the oppressor is as much a prisoner as the oppressed. As soon as the former here is the oppressor, robs the oppressed of their freedom, he himself gets robbed of his humanity. Thus, he thinks that the oppressor too is not free. So students, hope you have understood this chapter. Thank you and have a nice day.